It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
Do you find it notable that our founding fathers put the Second Amendment right after the First Amendment?
Yes, sir.
Why do you believe that our founders wanted to give the citizens the right to defend themselves?
I think at the time in particular, the citizenry did not have a guarantee that the government would protect them, and they wanted to have the opportunity to protect themselves against a tyrannical government.
Bingo. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people, when they think about the Second Amendment, they really don't look at the context of when it was written and the fact that our founders had just fought against a government. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to...
Welcome to Gun Owners Radio. I am one of your co-hosts, Michael Schwartz. I am the Executive Director for San Diego County Gun Owners. And to my right is Dakota
Adelphia. I am the facilitator of the San Diego chapter of A Girl and a Gun and a CCW instructor for San Diego County, firearms instructor, lots of things. I do a lot of things in the industry, but it's all a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Awesome. And to my left,
Alicia Curtin.
How are you, Alicia Curtin?
I am fantastic. I am a firearms instructor as well, DOJ, California here, BSIS as well as Post, and yeah.
There you go. All right, we got a couple of things to talk about before we get into the show. First off, we've gotten away from answering questions,
Yes.
email questions, people sending in questions. We've gotten away from that. So I wanted to make sure that we did that. I pulled a couple of questions from the email bag, the inbox, the old inbox, and I wanted to make sure that they were very Second Amendment specific. So I pulled a couple of those.
I haven't even seen these. This is exciting.
Okay, cool. All right.
Let's
Well,
do it.
why don't you want to read the first one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I
you
don't-
read the first
it's
one.
a paper. He's
Yep.
he's passing me. How old are we?
Yeah, well-
we have computer screens
No,
in front of us.
here you go. I printed it out. Go ahead.
All right.
All right. Go ahead.
This is from Mark Schultz. I had to really read that twice because I thought it said Mike Schwartz.
No,
and I was
no,
like,
it's Mark.
I was like, did you write this?
No,
Okay.
come on. Why would you accuse? Go
This
ahead.
is from Mark Schultz.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of the Second Amendment and try to focus all my energy on the Second Amendment.
Good.
Your show really helps.
Yep.
This is such a prank. My question is, how does the host, Michael Schwartz, maintain such a fresh and youthful look?
Good Second Amendment question. Why are you laughing?
I knew something was up, but I didn't know
What are you talking
what.
about? Well, listen, it's clean living.
Okay.
Let's answer a Second Amendment question.
Okay.
It's clean living. Don't drink, and I got to tell you, just have a positive mental attitude, and that's
That does it?
That does it. So
All right.
thank you, Mark Schultz, who wrote that in. It was definitely sounds like a good listener. I'm
Yes.
really happy about that.
Is there another one? Is there a real one?
What do you mean? You don't think that's real? How can you not think that's real?
That's very funny. I appreciate being pranked on the
I don't
air.
think-
Do I get one?
I don't deserve that kind of abuse. I don't deserve that level of scrutiny here.
You
All
were
right.
so defensive initially. I was like, something's got to be happening, but I should have just skimmed
I
the
can't
question.
believe that you're questioning my integrity right here on the show.
Yes.
All right,
Right.
here's the second one. Go ahead.
right.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah. Who's that one from? Who's that one from?
Morty Schwantz.
Morty Schwantz. Okay. What does he want to know about the Second Amendment?
I would like to echo what the last guy wrote about Michael's good looks.
Oh, thank you. That's okay. Keep going. This sounds good.
I don't agree with Dakota's pushback on that email at all.
Yeah.
Great
well,
email.
me either. I got to tell you, I don't agree either. I thought it was a little.
Oh my God, he really just
Keep going.
dragged
Oh,
us right
it's not
into
done.
this bit.
It does.
I don't know what you're
Keep up
talking
the good work and let us know if you have a skincare routine or what.
Yeah, I do. I have a skincare routine. It has to do with exfoliation and
Hops 9.
a little bit of hoppies here and there behind the ear, but You want to keep your face exfoliated, cleaned, and then, of course, well lotioned. So thank you, guys. We're going to definitely have more of these. I thought this went really, really well. Those are some good Second Amendment questions. If you have any good Second Amendment questions, by all means, email us at, what is it? info@gunownersradio.com. Thank you so much. All right.
Was that your launch into comedy? Are you trying to tell us something? Are you leaving 2A advocacy to go do stand-up comedy?
I'm a little flattered by that. Thank you. I mean, it is pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you guys, I don't know if you've seen this clip. Remember we used to do like English, we'd do English updates, like somebody was using a phrase and crap. This is kind of along those same lines, but it's still political. I call this short segment AOC is dumb. So go ahead and play the video that we have.
Because it is not a coincidence, and our whole country must understand that it was not until voting rights were ratified in this country that we got the Great Society. Because when Black Americans have the right to vote and that vote is protected, our schools get funded. When voting rights are protected, healthcare gets expanded. When voting rights are protected, our country moves forward. In Montgomery, that's what they're actually afraid of. They're afraid of us coming together. They're afraid of us protecting one another. Alabama is the crucible. Georgia is the crucible. Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi is the crucible. So if you are not from here, it is time to pull up. Because what they thought was the final blow is actually just the opening silo.
Stop. Okay. The opening silo is what she's threatening. And I don't know if you noticed, but if you actually go back to the closed caption, they actually corrected her in the closed caption. It's the opening salvo, not the opening silo. An opening silo would be a place where you store grain, and you would
spills all over when you open the bottom. Yeah.
A salvo would be, of course, basically shots fired.
That's funny.
I thought that was hilarious. And by the way, she was like factually incorrect where she talked about how she said that voting rights led to the Great Society, and it was actually most of the Great Society laws were passed before the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So anyway,
She was super confident. She had to be right.
yeah, I know she had all the confidence. It is kind of funny. I mean, talk about somebody like
I know
what a delta between what she knows and how much confidence she has.
Yes, right.
So
right.
all right.
Yep.
Last thing here is, before we move on into the show, is do you guys remember, I don't know if you guys were in the studio, but a few weeks ago I told a story about Spencer Pratt.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
And how I was like, hey man, aren't you Spencer Pratt? And he was trying to get a CCW, and I was like,
Yes.
and he was like, oh no, that's not me. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And he wouldn't anyway. So he actually told this story on CNN.
Did.
So
But
he
he didn't name drop you. I was disappointed.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
I was a little disappointed too. I might call him later, but go ahead and play the.
Why are you a Republican?
Well, you want to break some news here?
Sure.
It's in my, I've told this before, and this is the only time I've ever said this, so this is breaking news. Everyone's going to freak out. When I was a hated reality star, I got so many death threats. I had so much security and police, and what did they tell me to do? Get a gun. This is real. I know people don't like guns, but LA was dangerous if you're hated. So I got a gun. My wife got a gun. And then we needed CCWs. The only people that supported a CCW was the Republican. That was what I aligned with, my safety, my personal safety, my family's safety. I know people don't like guns, but when people are threatening your life and your own security is telling you you need to have home protection, train to, it's not like just I went to the, go through the proper steps. That was that's it.
And that was it. And you felt like that party was more pro Second Amendment.
And I know that's a very hot button, but here's the thing. I'm also going to be the mayor that puts LAPD in front of every school to make schools safe from guns. Right now we have
officers to do that?
I talked to a very knowledgeable law enforcement.
That's interesting. So
all you have to
I
do.
just wanted to show that part, but it's interesting that Bianco is also talking about putting armed law enforcement at schools. That is definitely becoming a more mainstream, acceptable deterrent towards or from some of these horrific murders that we've seen. We're going to talk a little bit about it later in the show.
Yeah.
But so boom, like I said, the guy's got a CCW, and I had a small part in that, and broke it 3 weeks before he did, by the way. Thank you to BW Malibu 1 for the $25 super chat. Wow, thank you so much. That's awesome. It was on the Bianco on gun rights video from the Not Me CA dinner, which was very, very cool. I'm glad that he came and spoke, and we got him on tape. Rich did a wonderful job of getting him on tape. The Tactical Communications and Signals Intelligence class is filling up, but there's still some space. So register today at thegunownersradio.com. Learn how to stay informed when everyone else is in the dark. Think of it as an introduction to modern-day situational awareness. You'll learn how to use radios and other off-the-shelf gear to gather information, monitor activity, and stay connected when it matters most. Now, that's happening Saturday, May 30th, so it's coming up. 2026, that's this year. I'm glad you put 2026, Rich. It's at Cargo in El Cajon. It's only $200, so just go to gunownersradio.com and please sign up.
It is the perfect place for that class.
Yeah, it is.
They've got all the stuff.
You want to read the next one?
Sure.
Go for it.
Oh, but it starts with a name I can't.
That's why
Michael.
That's why I wanted you to read it.
I apologize in advance, Kevin, if I butcher.
Michalowski.
There you go.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Michalowski.
Thank you. Is coming to town on June 18th, and he is the executive editor of USCCA's Concealed Carry magazine. He is going to give a talk on the top CCW trends and best practices of 2026. June 18th, 2026 at 5:30. The cost is free, so be there. There will be pizza and giveaways. The location is right here at DGM on Marina Boulevard. That is Discount Gun Mart. Space and pizza is limited, so sign up today at gunownersradio.com.
Yeah, they contacted us. USCCA contacted us and said, hey, we want to do an interview, and they're actually coming out to San Diego to do it, which is very, very cool. So I don't know if have you read their magazine? It's a really good magazine.
Yep.
So I don't know if you know this, but USCCA actually started out as a publication. The magazine was first.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the guy that he's a publisher, and so USCCA's Concealed Carry magazine was their first thing, and then they built out the other product or the insurance. I don't know. Some people get all excited.
They
when I
do
call it
training,
insurance.
and Delta Defense is their insurance arm. But yeah.
So their training and their activism, and of course their defensive, coverage, legal coverage. Maybe that's what we should call it, defensive legal coverage. That actually came after the magazine. So their magazine. What I'm trying to say is, the thing they do best is was the thing they did first, which is the magazine. So the magazine wasn't an afterthought. So if you're not getting the magazine or you're not reading the magazine, check it out. They actually do a really, really good job, and they have some really good stuff. So I'm looking forward to Kevin, and I'm looking forward to this event. It's totally free, and you get pizza. Oh my God, how can you miss that?
What kind of pizza? Because that might make a difference.
It's gonna
be sauced.
Yeah.
Sauced. Okay.
Oh yeah, sauced.
Yeah.
They're the best.
All right, that's all right.
Best.
All
Okay.
right. I'm in.
Sign up today. Go to gunownersradio.com. All right. Okay. So listen, we're going to talk to a candidate from Georgia who's running for Congress. We're going to talk to Barry Jantz from Jantz Communications. He's going to talk about the governor's race. There's actually a couple of different things I want to talk about when it comes to the governor's race that it's important. And then we're going to go over the shooting at the mosque that happened here in San Diego, which is absolutely horrific. There's a couple of things we want to cover on that. And we're going to try to stump my nephew. So sit back, relax, have a good time, and thanks for joining us. Go to gunownersradio.com. Follow us on social media. Tell all your friends about us. Like this podcast on YouTube, comment, share, subscribe, do all the stuff. So thanks a lot. gunownersradio.com.
When your rights are on the line and the fight gets real, you need a lawyer who knows the deal. From gun laws to courtrooms, he'll stand by John Dillon fights for the red, white, and blue. John Dillon defending your rights, keeping bare arms with truth and might. From GVROs to self-defense calls, Dillon Law Group, he fights for us all. When freedom's under fire, who you gonna call? Dillon Law Group, justice for all. DillonLawGP.com.
Okay, we have the pleasure to interview Barry Jantz from Jantz Communications. Barry Jantz is somebody who knows an enormous amount when it comes to the political landscape here in San Diego. He's somebody who has been a part of it, who's been neck deep in it. He's been commenting on it and watching it for years. And the thing I like best about Barry is that he doesn't just shoot from the hip. He uses real data and knows how to process data and how to analyze data to really explain himself. So he doesn't just tell you, well, gee, this is what I want to happen or this is what I think is going to happen. He says, hey, these are what the numbers tell me. And I'm always really, really impressed with what a great job he does. Barry, how you doing, man?
You're really impressed whether you like what I'm saying or not, right? So
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Michael.
Good. Yeah. So you wrote an article. Which GOP candidate has the best chance to win as governor in November? Neither one. That's the name of the article. So talk about, first off,
there you go. That's all you need to know.
It's like
Breaking my heart.
What was the inspiration? What made you write the article and analyze the numbers?
I didn't even write this part, but the inspiration, the Republican state party convention was in San Diego just a few weeks ago. And there used to be a point in my life when I would go to every single one of those, right? Mm-hmm. But in more recent years, probably in the last 20 years, I don't go to a lot of them unless they're close by, and maybe I'll go for a reception or something. And as it was approaching, I thought it was in San Diego, and I thought maybe I'll go down and, have a cocktail or two, at an evening reception. I was thinking, I just can't stomach going, because I know that everything I'm seeing on Facebook is just going to be playing out there. This big argument between Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton, and who should be the nominee, so to speak, and everything. And I just couldn't stomach it, because it's just like it's such a time waster. Do we need a Republican on the ballot in November? Yeah. In fact, you were just talking about some of the reasons. I think it carries down. It motivates Republicans to turn out to vote in elections that really will have an outcome based on vote turnout. And that's very, very important. And there's a lot of races that Republicans cannot sit at home, whether or not we can win the governorship. So, but anyway, the inspiration was I had to get it off my chest. Okay, that there's no chance. Is there a chance for a Republican to make it through in 11 days and get in the general election? Absolutely. We haven't missed the Republican at the top of the ballot going back as long as I can remember. I think probably always there's been a Republican at the top of the ballot, even since we went to this open voting system, open primary type thing. But I think that's very likely to happen again. I think it's going to be Steve Hilton. That said, I don't care what Republican is at the top of the ballot. That Republican will not win in November, and the data speaks to it.
I've talked about that. We've gone over it, but tell us why. Talk to me like I'm 5 years old. Explain to me why. Why does a Republican? It's America. Everybody's got a chance. Anything can happen.
Everybody's got a chance. So as the article on San Diego Rostra talks about, it shows the data going back. I went back to 2000, year 2000, so 26 years. So that actually includes the recall election, which was a few years after that with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I point out is an anomaly. People were not voting for or against the Republican. They were voting for or against an international superstar. And maybe that's the answer. If Republicans are going to win in the future, it's got to be someone like that. But that aside, the registration has declined so significantly in that 26-year time frame statewide for Republicans, where Democrat registration has pretty much stayed the same. and then decline to state. Those who want to be independent, a lot of younger people don't want party labels. They want to be independent. That's increased at about the same rate as Republican decline. That creates right now a 20% point difference between Democrats and Republicans statewide. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it carries forward into the fact that if you look at all of these elections, that for the most part, people vote their party. People will say in polling that, because they want to be viewed as independent. So in polling, they will say, I don't vote for the party, I vote for the person. They say that in polling, but when it comes to election time, if it's a Democrat, no matter what they say about being independent, they're oftentimes just going to go with their party's person and reject the other person, okay? Republicans do the same. Decline to states may shift one way or the other depending on the election. In a close election, those decline to states, those independent voters shifting one way or the other, has a significant impact on an election in a close election. But when there's a 20% voter registration margin between Republicans and Democrats in the state, no matter which way you carve up the map, even with a high Republican turnout, a low Democrat turnout, even with Republicans all voting for the Republican, some Democrats switching, and even with decline to states leaning more Republican than ever, you still cannot make up for the fact that most folks will just vote for their party, and the margin of difference, it doesn't get you there. So the data shows that in every election for governor in this state, going back a number of years, the Republican candidate has not exceeded the high water mark since 1998. Okay, was Bill Simon in 2002 when he got 42% of the vote. Now, I'm not counting Arnold, those two anomalies, for the reason I stated, but in the last 4 elections, no Republican candidate one-on-one in a general election against a Democrat has exceeded 41% of the vote in this state. And that's where it's going to be right about there. It's going to be between 39 and 41% for, assuming Steve Hilton makes it through, for Steve Hilton in the general.
Well, Brian Dolly in that last election is kind of the purest example of what a Republican can do. I've made that case anyway. In other words, nobody knew who he was. I mean, he was a name on the ballot. No one could pick him out of a crowd of 2. People who voted for Brian Dolly for governor last time around were really truly just voting for a random unknown Republican, and he got 40%.
I always say you get, for being on the ballot, just for being on the ballot and having a major party endorsement, you're guaranteed 25% of the vote. And then everything else gets added to that, how much you do, but it gets capped out at a certain point. So Brian Dolly, you're right. In fact, when I was running the data, I recognized all these other candidate names over the years, right? Lundgren, Simon, Schwarzenegger, Meg Whitman, Neil Kashkari. But I actually surprised myself because I hadn't remembered who the last one was. Only in 2022 it was that guy Brian Dolly. Yeah.
He's kind of the opposite of Schwarzenegger. We're just bashing poor Brian Dolly, but he's kind of the opposite of Schwarzenegger, where Schwarzenegger was all name ID, and Brian Dolly's kind of the other way around. Okay, so the 22% of the decline to state voters, have you seen data, or do you know? Do you have any kind of reliable data? If you really had to break it out, the 22%, what percentage can be counted on to vote for a Republican, and what percentage can generally be counted on to vote for a Democrat?
So you're gonna, and I didn't, the article was getting at the Times of San Diego, one of our favorites, of course. Times of San Diego already asked me if I would cut this down for them. I think it's running today on Times of San Diego website. But cutting it down, was I had to cut it in half from 1,500 words to 750 words. So I just had to get to the core essentials. So because this thing was already at 1,500 words, I didn't want to get into that kind of detail about, well, how do decline to states break out over the years? But generally speaking, you can run the math any one of these times and say, okay, how did a Brian Dolly do? How did a Dan Lundgren do? You can kind of take the difference between Republican registration and Democratic registration, what the candidates got, and the decline to states kind of break, and the math adds up. So generally speaking, you do not see a difference of 5 or 7 percentage points on decline to states between one candidate and the other. Okay, now I can get into way more detail on that, but decline to states who live on the coast tend to be environmental. They tend to be environmentally minded. They're not declined to states because the Republican Party's not conservative enough for them. They're like liberal, but they just like to be viewed as independent. So they're declined to state, but they vote for the more liberal candidate. In East County, San Diego here, where there's a lot of conservatives, those declined to states probably want to, I hate to say it, I'm only joking, of course, but they probably would like to shoot the environmentalists that live on the coast, right? There are, in the most conservative areas of the state, some decline to states that they don't like the Republican Party because it's not conservative enough for them, right? But they're still going to vote for the most conservative candidates. Okay, well, that's still, it's still only probably no more than 10 or 15% of the decline to states. So the decline to states will break one way or the other, say 7 percentage points in a high water mark, but it's never enough to make up for that 20% difference between the two major parties. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And I guess really even they'd have to get 100% of the decline to state votes in order to catch up to the Democrats.
Right. Oh, and some would say, well, no, you don't. You'd only need 75% if Republican turnout was way greater than Democratic turnout. Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing my article addresses. You never see, get out the vote efforts, which local activists like San Diego County governors is involved in, is essential. But that never turns into, that's making sure we're competitive in competitive elections. That's never going to mean Republican turnout is 5 or 7% higher than Democratic turnout or vice versa. And a 2-point swing is essential to very close elections, but not a statewide election of this kind of difference in registration already. It starts as a blowout on paper before you even cast a ballot.
So the Trump endorsement, what did that do to this race, and what did that do for Steve Hilton, the candidate?
I think it was significant for Steve Hilton. I think I saw you this morning saying, "Hey, Bianco's got to drop out here." I think Hilton's going to get there. Obviously, no one can drop out.
Wait a minute. Just real quick, I did not say that. I think what you're referring to is I had a post where I was kind of making fun of the Steve Hilton crowd. You are so funny all the time. I can't tell when you're funny and when you're okay. But basically, so you didn't say that. Okay. Yeah, the Steve Hilton crowd is basically saying, hey, of course Steve Hilton can win. Polling's always wrong, and we can do this thing. But then out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying Chad Bianco's got to drop out because the polling is clearly accurate in this situation.
Okay. Well, with 11 days, 11 days of dropping out doesn't mean a lot. Exactly. There is an indication that Republicans are voting earlier than they have in past elections when they were afraid of putting anything on the ballot. Democrats are more holding on to their ballots. That's now starting to switch, by the way. It's going the other way. So 2 weeks ago, I was thinking, well, Republican turnout may be greater than we've seen it, but it's still not enough to make up the difference in this race, but the governor race. But now we're seeing it swing the other way where the Democrats are now sending their ballots in. So I think, turnout's going to be, turnout between the parties is going to be close to each other. So then it's okay. Do we have a bunch of crossover vote or not? No, no election shows that, and this decline happens. This long downward trend of a decline in party registration of Republicans, as I show it, that's been over years. So no one election is going to reverse something that quickly. It takes time.
And every election, every 2 years, I hear this one's going to be different. Every single election, and it never is. It's always about the same. I mean, sure, somebody squeaks by or has a good showing that maybe we didn't expect, or hey, wow, that came out of nowhere, or whatever. But for the most part, it's pretty predictable. Right?
Surprises. The most significant surprises we see in elections in the last 15 years in the state happen, at the state legislative level, state Senate, state assembly, where it's a lean Democrat seat, and a Republican actually wins it to the surprise of everybody, and that's usually based on a great ground campaign, a real good Republican turnout. But again, that's 1/40th or 1/80th, depending on Senate or Assembly of the state. It's not the entire state with a 20% margin of difference. Those elections have usually, the margin of registration difference have typically been kind of 5% between Republicans and Democrats, where then the person on the lower end of that scale, the person from the party on the lower end of that scale is the one that wins, not 20.
And it's especially in a statewide race in an enormous state like California, 1-2%. That's an enormous amount of vote. That's a huge number of people that are represented by 1% of the voters. My understanding too, I just saw this morning that it's something like 7% of eligible voters have actually already voted. They've already turned in their ballot as of today. 7% of eligible voters. That's not even that's not going to end up being how many actual voters, but that's eligible voters. Okay, so what should people take away from this? Are we just being negative? Are we the? Of course, I didn't make a lot of people happy with this article. I know this article isn't read, as much as I'd like it to be, but kind of insiders and political people follow San Diego roster more so than the masses. I understand that, but I don't think I made a lot of people happy because I looked like I was a defeatist maybe to them. I looked like I was being a naysayer, but as the article points out, if you actually read it and not just cherry pick it, pieces of it is, I'm saying that your vote matters and it matters significantly. The reason I said it, I'll say it again, the reason for having a Republican at the top of the ballot is essential to down ballot races, because otherwise, people here, the problem is a lot of folks have this monarchist point of view. They think if you have the top spot or you don't have the top spot, everything's going to be great or everything's going to be bad. That carries with the presidency, and they fail to see that, you could have the top spot and they could take a position, say, on the Second Amendment, and say it's anti-Second Amendment. But if the legislature was all on your side, that the top spot doesn't really matter. It's the local elections have significance. And the reason for having a Republican at the top of the ballot is oftentimes for those who really don't want to turn out for any local election. They'll turn out for governor. They think they've got a chance, and I want them to think we've got a chance. I don't want masses reading this, maybe, right? That's the key, is that I want them to turn out, because if they vote for Republican up here, they're going to vote for Republican at the lower level offices. In some elections where it's competitive, it's close, and them turning out does matter. So I guess that's the key takeaway, is don't think not being able to have the top spot means you should stay home. You absolutely should go out and vote. Yeah, if you had to guess, if you had to give an educated guess, or would you even be able to guess, if there were no Republican that made it to the general election, what percentage of Republicans wouldn't show up to vote? You know what I mean? Would it impact it 1%, 5%, 10%? If you had to shoot from your hip and guess, what would you think?
Yeah. Okay. And again, it's not going to be some huge number. I could see people not even getting that until election time. when they start asking and realizing that, oh, my neighbor told me that not even a Republican on the ballot, so it wouldn't be this kind of huge educated thing. But I think, in this final, you just said it, it's 11 days out. Set that 7%, that surprises me. I think it should be higher than that, but whatever, I think in the final days, it would mean a lot of Republicans would say, hey, the Democrats have control of the state. There's no reason for me to go vote. We don't even have a candidate for governor. And that's probably amounts to maybe 2 or 3%. Okay. And that 2 or 3% means something in a close election in a city. Okay. Absolutely it does. Or even a state legislative contest that's close. It means something. It means that something it means that something between two Republicans.
Yeah. Because
those who stay home may be more inclined to support one Republican or another. So you mentioned Christie Bruce Lane. You mentioned that Ed Musgrove Christie Bruce Lane race. I mean, it would affect races like that with no Republican at the top of the ballot.
And I think you're absolutely right, and I think it probably affects Republican districts more than it affects Democratic districts. So it's not like it affects everything. It's not going to be 4 or 5% in every single district. It's going to be 9% in a Republican district and 1% in a Democratic or whatever. I'm totally shooting from that.
There you go. Yes.
Last thing I wanted to ask about, can you touch on I really do believe, if I could go back in time a year and a half, I really do believe that there is a strategy that would have worked to get two Republicans through the June primary. I personally spoke to Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco about that idea. I spoke to him off the air. I spoke to him on the air. Neither one of them were even halfway interested in that, and they both had different reasons for it. So it's gone. I think that whole idea of two Republicans, if it happens, would be a miracle. But can you touch on it? What are your thoughts on two Republicans making it through June?
Aside from registration, the Democratic Party has control over the state for a lot of other reasons. It's not just registration; it's dollars. It's being aligned with labor unions, both public employee unions and other unions, and having the dollars to make things happen. Now, do they have when it comes to personalities, no amount of dollars can talk a personality like one of the Democrats who doesn't have a chance to get out of a race. That comes down to someone saying, no, I'm going to be on the ballot, whether I like it or not, but whether you like it or not. But when it comes to influencing people, they weren't going to, the Democrats were not going to let this happen.
Yeah.
By the way, they want to, the Democrats, let's be real clear. I think this should be obvious to people. The Democrats want a Republican on the ballot in November. They don't want to talk. They don't want two of their top Democrats facing each other. They want a Democrat for the same reasons. They want a Democrat against a Republican for the same reasons I'm staying, because they know it's a done deal in November. So if the Democrats and the labor unions saw any chance whatsoever in their polling for two Republicans to be making it through, they would have taken a shot with a lot of money against the weakest Republican. They probably might have even spent Democratic money bolstering the top Republican. Okay, they don't see that happening in their polling. They see that Hilton's likely to get through. They hope he's going to get through, and that Bianco's got no chance. This is how I'm reading the tea leaves. So they don't have to spend money to try to kill Bianco at this point. Now they don't have enough money in a primary to influence whether it's Becerra or Steyer, maybe. They'll spend that money in the general. But if they needed the money in the primary to ensure it wasn't two Republicans, they would find a way to do that and spend all that money in the primary. And they've got the money to do it.
Do you think the video where Katie Porter tees off on her employee, do you think that killed her race? Do you think she'd be at the top of the ticket if not for that going public?
Well, okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure top. I think the top three may be way closer. Someone else like a Becerra may not have gained the momentum he did. So it could have been, say a Steyer and a Porter, looking like the polling is now for Becerra and Steyer. But I think, and with the math of voters, I think they were largely unaware of it. But the kind of party and insider backlash she started getting impacted her ability to gain more endorsements, gain momentum, gain financial support. Yes, absolutely. And that wasn't the only thing. I think there were a couple things like that that had started to come out about her. And so she lost momentum as a result of that. Otherwise, yeah, I think would she be riding high number one? I don't know. It might be still a couple Democrats vying, but it might have very well been her.
Do you think Swalwell's votes went to Becerra? Do you think that's why he surged?
Partly, yes. I would say the timing. I mean, you can't ignore the timing. I haven't seen any polling saying, hey, going to Swalwell supporters and saying, who'd you switch to? I haven't seen that. But I would say based on timing alone, and certainly momentum shifts, that probably had a lot to do with it.
And what do you think? I'm going to ask you about Hilton and Bianco. What could Hilton have done better, and what could Bianco have done better, in your opinion?
Boy,
just one.
You know,
just one thing. It's a
big question.
Yeah, it's not that long a show.
Yeah. So, but by the way, for the reason I don't have an answer, I just got to admit, the reason I don't have an answer is because largely I haven't cared for the very reason I wrote this article. I haven't cared because another one of them was going to be our governor. So I haven't been paying as much attention other than the data for the very reason. So I don't know. I just don't know.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Barry, I really appreciate it. If you guys want to, we're going to, of course, link to the article. But if you want to see the article, go to sdrostra.com, sdrostra.com. And check it out. I think your writing's fantastic. Your analysis is always amazing. I really, truly appreciate all the commentary that you give in San Diego. And really, truly, San Diego's blessed to have you in our political scene. I just think the world of you. And I thank you so much for coming on and making the
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it very much.
All right.
We'll see you.
Barry Jantz.
Thank
you.
How many times have you been in a situation where you feel like you're not quite safe, but drawing your gun and having it in your hand is not a reasonable solution to your problem? That's why I carry palm pepper spray. It's so discreet you can carry it in your hand no matter where you are, and no one will give you a second look. It's also proven to be effective against lots and lots of different types of threats, including things like dogs. Not all of us think about what we would need to use pepper spray against, but I don't want to get my hands in the middle of a dog fight, and I don't think you do either. Palm pepper spray, versatile, small to carry, easy to conceal, and effective. Carry palm.
So our next guest is proof that the Second Amendment is not a partisan issue. I'm very honored to have candidate for Congress out of Georgia, Shawn Harris, on the show, and we want to talk to him about his campaign and everything in general. We definitely want to focus on Second Amendment too. And Shawn, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, hey, first of all, I would say thank you for letting me be on the show, and I'm sorry we got some camera problems today, but let's do it and have some fun and talk about the Second Amendment.
There you go. Okay, so first off, I was looking through your profile, and it's interesting to me that you enlisted in the Marine Corps, but then retired as in the Army.
Yes,
talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I was blessed at 17, 18 years old to go into the United States Marine Corps back in 1984. Went in and enlisted, was an 0311, which is a grunt, and worked my way all the way up to sergeant, so as a senior, up to NCO. And then I got out, and as I got out, my intent was to go into Naval ROTC at Tuskegee University.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I got there, the program was just in beginning stages, and it wasn't all the way up. So the Army stepped in and said, hey, if they don't have this stuff together, we can still help pay for school. And myself and about 6 other Marines, we all switched over to Army ROTC. 4 years later, we all came out as infantry officers with the Fort Benning. And then worked my way all the way up to Brigadier General. Last assignment was Israel, senior military official, served in combat in Afghanistan, led teams in Afghanistan, and then led teams also in Liberia during Ebola. Was just blessed to serve the American people for about 40 years. And part of doing that training was I was what they call the embedded trainer. So I trained military forces of foreign countries all over the world. And I just look forward to having a discussion with y'all guys today, because I believe that when it comes to weapons, you should be able to have a weapon, but you also need to go like we talk about in the military. This is your weapon. Nobody else owns it but you.
Phenomenal. Okay, great. Well, okay, and you're from Georgia, and it said on your profile here you grew up on a farm. I'm not real familiar with your district. Talk a little bit about your district. Is it fairly rural? Is there a lot of agriculture? Is it urban?
Yes, well, our district CD14 is Northwest Georgia. It is majority of rural communities, a lot of small towns. However, it does have West Cobb in it, which is a suburb of Atlanta. But the majority of our district is farmland, farmers, hardworking people that go to work every day, coming out of Atlanta, coming back through Rome, Georgia, and then going all the way up to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So if you can imagine that, if you ever came down 24 and you go in that one little curve where it says 1 minute you're in Tennessee and the next minute you back in Georgia, you are in my district at that particular point.
Now, this is the district. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene's former district, right?
Yeah.
That is 100%. I ran against Marjorie the first time, and then we were running against Marjorie. However, you know that she actually decided that she was going to retire, and then we ended up getting into a different race here a few months ago against Clay, and Clay is now our representative. But Clay and I, just based off the last primary election, which was this past Tuesday, Clay and I are going right back at it again.
Interesting. Now, what was it like now she just up and quit in January? What was that like for the district?
You know, it kind of put the district in a little bit of a tailspin. I will tell you, I could see the change in Marjorie Taylor Greene. I call it, the first time I ran against Marjorie, she was Marjorie Taylor Greene 1.0. And then she started changing a little bit when it came to the Epstein files. And that divorce started happening between Marjorie and Donald Trump. And with that, as she started moving further and further, because I am a moderate Democrat, Marjorie started sounding more like me, where she agreed on the Epstein files. She also started talking about how her daughter or son was just turning 26 and they couldn't afford their health care. And then on top of all those things, one of the last things that we were getting into as Marjorie was in the process of leaving us was we was about to start this war in Iran. And her and I both agreed that this was a war of choice. And we really need to think about what we was getting into it. And if we got into it, what was going to be our exit strategy. So when I look at Marjorie, when I look at Marjorie today, she's more similar to me than anybody else that's running.
What's your opinion? Why do you think she quit?
I think she quit is because of the Epstein files, but I also think she quit is because she realized that some of the things that Donald Trump and others had been telling her was not true. And as she realized that that whole mega line was not true, she said, you know what, I need to separate myself from it. And still today, even though Margaret is not in Congress, pretty much every day or every other day, she comes up on the net and says something about what is happening here in the United States. She is currently now, she doesn't even live in our district anymore. She sold a house. She lives in Costa Rica. And the only reason I know she lives in Costa Rica is because she posted it and showed us her beautiful home that she's went and bought. So I wish her the best. But at the end of the day, I think she realized that the Kool-Aid that she was being given does not taste good. And I think she's now trying to convince people that the Republican Party that used to be is not the Republican Party today. The Republican Party today is Donald Trump's party 100%. And he proved that here in the last couple of days. If you don't support Donald Trump, they're going to run you out of the party. and that just happened up there in Kentucky.
Well, he just had a hell of a session there. I think he's like 37-0. He endorsed like 37 people, and all of them won. So far.
That is
successful.
true. Yeah, that is true. But I tell you, I believe that as this economy, as things start getting tighter and tighter, people love to talk about affordability. The way I talk about it is kitchen table issues. How can you afford to put gas or put food on the table? As those things start to come more and more, you're going to start seeing more and more people breaking away from Donald Trump and his party and my opponent, Clay Fuller.
I don't know about that. I don't want to get into Donald Trump. I'd rather trash Marjorie Taylor Greene more. I really
That's
never
fine
liked
with me
her.
too.
Yeah, I never liked her at all. In fact, she came to San Diego, and I actually put it out there. I said, do not wear a San Diego County gun owner's T-shirt at her event and take a picture. I want to stay away from her. I was never a fan. And there are probably a lot of things that she and I agree on, but I'd much rather trash her. I just thought she was weird as all hell. I don't know. What was her?
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think she got elected in the district?
Well, I think it was a situation where, Marjorie originally ran for several things in Atlanta, Georgia, and couldn't break through. And I believe that Marjorie saw an opportunity out here where a candidate that had been representing this area for a long time, had retired, and the opportunity was here. And I believe when she got in, based on what people have told me when she got in, the Republican Party came to her and said, look, you could be the AOC of the Republican Party. And that's when she got the name of MTG. And when she picked up the name of MTG, I think by getting that MTG, she got a whole new persona. And I think right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to separate herself from the MTG and go back to whoever she used to be and kind of going from there. But again, like you said, as far as I'm concerned, Marjorie Taylor Greene is in the past.
Yeah.
She doesn't even live in our district anymore. And my focus is just trying to help the people here in Northwest Georgia to live their life.
Yeah, and let's bridge it to your let's bridge it to your campaign. We've probably spent way too much time on her, but my bridge here is, why will a district who elected her elect you?
Yeah, the reason why is quite simple. Is the district is actually just looking for a leader, and they look for somebody who's going to fight for them and actually focus in on them. Something that makes my campaign so unique is that I may be the only Democrat in the entire country that is documented that Democrats, independents, and yes, Republicans actually vote for me. And in this last election I just had with Clay, we actually closed the gap down by 25 points. Got to keep in mind, this is a 35-point place that I was playing in. Now, when Clay and I go back to head, this district is a toss-up. This is not a gimme. The Republican Party just the other day had already spent $2.3 million on me. And if it was that easy, they wouldn't even think about me. The reality of it is things are changing here in Northwest Georgia, and the people know me, they see me. Right before I got on y'all guys' show, people saw me at Tractor Supply. So they know I know the real Shawn Harris. I know this guy was a general. He's down to earth, and he cares about me, my kids, and my grandkids. And
now,
that's
did you pick up any? They usually have little baby turkeys at Tractor Supply.
Well, they are selling today. I looked at them, but we're good to go.
They're adorable. No baby turkeys. Okay, well that's fair.
No baby turkeys today. All the turkeys are sold.
By the way, I am not pro or anti baby turkey, so I don't. That's not an issue. I'm not gonna die on that hill. But so Shawn, let me. Okay, so you're in a fairly purple district, I think is what you're telling me, and I got to tell you, man, I have fought for years to be nonpartisan, and I have criticized Republicans when they deserve it. I've praised Republicans when they deserve it. I've criticized Democrats a whole lot, and I haven't found a lot of opportunity to praise them when it comes to the Second Amendment. But I've tried so hard to stay nonpartisan. But man, it is near impossible these days. They just took over Virginia, which is, whatever. They took it over. But the first thing they did is, pass a dozen anti-gun laws. And I'm not talking about reasonable, restrictions on guns. I mean, extremist California style gun stuff. I mean, they had barely decorated their offices, and Democrats in Virginia were banning guns and vilifying gun owners. So Democrats have earned the ire that they get from gun owners. But you're pro Second Amendment, so help me explain to a gun owner, why would a gun owner vote for a Democrat who's pro Second Amendment? What's the advantage there?
The advantage is that what I've said many times here in the district, I am a Democrat, but I'm not tied to anybody's party. And that's why when you hear people talk about me, they talk about leadership matters. Because for 40 years, I never actually said was I a Democrat, independent, or Republican. It wasn't until the Republicans came here to my farm and recruited me to run against Marjorie Taylor Greene as a Republican that I actually had to tell people that, really, I'm more of a Democrat. And that was the piece that surprised me. And we had the Second Amendment discussion. What surprised me was this. After I told them all of that, they said, you know what, Shawn, we still want to support you. And they supported me today. So what I tell people is, don't put me in the trap bag of saying, well, he's a Democrat, he's like everybody else. No, I'm not. I'm Shawn Harris. I spent 40 years in the military. I have been connected to guns my entire life. And oh, by the way, I carry every day.
What do you carry? What's your carry gun?
I carry a weapon. But my thing is this. This is your weapon. You own it. You control it. Lock it up. Keep it safe. That's my thing. My thing is, like you talked about in Virginia, hey, man, let's stop going to the extreme. Let's stop going to the extreme. Let's just go back to the middle and say, okay, have your weapon. Nobody's coming to get it, period. If you're a person that don't like weapons, then don't buy one. But my thing is, control your weapon. Make sure that somebody that's crazy can't get it in their hands and go out and shoot up schools.
All right, so let me ask you a couple of specific questions. First off, what is your carry gun? What do you carry every day?
Right now, I'm carrying a 380. Nice little small weapon that can fit on anything that I'm wearing, from jeans to the inside of a suit. But then we actually have other weapons in the house.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so, but let's talk a little bit. Let's get real specific. Now, you were just talking about, hey, lock it up. Are you saying that that is a best practice, which we agree with? Just make sure your weapon's secure so that nobody can, get a hold of it that's not supposed to. Or are you saying that should be a law, that you should be convicted criminally if you're not locking your weapon up?
No, what I'm saying is it should be the gun's owner's responsibility to lock your weapon up, to ensure that when I say lock your weapon up, locking it up if you leave in your car, have a way to lock up in the car. And then on top of that, when you have it in your house, lock it up somewhere safe so that if somebody comes to your house or kids are in your area, somebody don't actually get it and make a mistake with it and shoot themselves, or somebody break into your place and actually take it and go out and do dumb things. That's right.
That's a best practice. You're not proposing that if you're elected, that federally you're going to have some kind of storage law at the federal level. You're not looking to do that?
Say that piece again. I'm sorry.
Sure. So you're saying that is a best practice, that's what people should do to be a responsible gun owner, but you're not proposing that, hey, that should be a federal law. If you get into Congress, you're not going to.
You're 100%. You're 100% on that. What I'm saying is this. These are the things that Shawn Harris do. These are the things that I've been trained in the military. Take care of your weapon. Know where your weapon is at all times, and make sure you know how to use your weapon. Don't pull your weapon out for the first time and turn it to the side because you're not going to hit anything.
Right. Okay, so let me just ask a couple more specific questions, because I can't tell you how many people tell me, hey, I'm pro Second Amendment, and
and then you start asking and you're like, this is not feeling pro Second Amendment to me,
So like, for example, assault weapon bans, bans on semi-automatic, AR style or AR pattern rifles. What are your thoughts on quote unquote assault weapon bans?
Yeah, when we talked about AR-15, you know, like I mentioned, I part of my job in the military for many years was training other militaries on exactly how to shoot weapons. That's from U.S. weapons all the way to to other countries' weapons. I'll say that way on this setting. My thing is this: a weapon of war, in my opinion, this is Shawn Harris' opinion, shouldn't be a weapon that we actually have out here. Now, when I say that, I want to be clear. When I say that, I'm not saying that you can't go out and purchase that, or if you already own it today, it's yours. Shawn Harris is not coming to get it. I'm going right back to what I said before. Lock it up. Make sure that somebody who's having a mental case situation or somebody that's going out to do some very bad things cannot get your weapon. And
Okay,
then on
so
top
let me
of that,
hold on a second. Let's make sure we understand here, because it sounds like, and please make sure that I'm correct here. It sounds like you're saying that you're not a big fan of owning, an AR pattern rifle. You don't think that it's maybe necessary, or you're not going to own one. But are you saying that there should or should not be a federal ban on AR pattern or basically any kind of semi-automatic rifle that are normally banned for these assault weapon
I want to be
bans?
very clear as this. I think that if a person wants to buy one of those weapons, when they go up there to buy it, they should have to go through some serious checks before they can be able to get it. Prime example, if you could see me, the weapon that I have here on my desk, I bought it here in Georgia when I got out of the military. It took me less than 15 minutes to buy this weapon. Now, they did a background check on me, did everything, and my background is clear, but I could have bought any type weapon in less than 15 minutes. I just want to make sure that when we're actually saying we're going to get this particular weapon, a weapon of war, and when I say a weapon of war, I'm not trying to talk like some other liberal cat. I know war. That's what the weapon's used for. A deer can't shoot back at you. So these weapons here are designed to kill people quickly, and a lot of them.
Make me nervous, Shawn. Listen, man, slow down here. We got to get some specifics here. Okay.
What I'm saying is when you go there and say, I want it, get it. What I'm saying on the backside, let's make sure we do the good checks to ensure that if they got it, they have it, we know where it's at, and we make sure it stays locked up.
Okay, when you say we know where it's at, what do you mean?
That means if Shawn, I'm going to use myself for example. Okay. If Shawn Harris decided to go up to the store and get an AR-15, it should show in the system that Shawn Harris bought an AR-15, and you know what that AR-15 is. And if Shawn Harris then goes back 3 days later and buy 5 more, somebody probably needs to ask the question. No different if somebody actually buys a silencer. I think because we all believe in weapons. You know, if you buy a silencer, all of a sudden the FBI is probably going to come ask you 1 or 2 questions. Why did you actually get a silencer for your weapon? That's the only thing I'm saying is the system. You still have your freedoms, but I want to make sure whoever's getting these weapons, we know exactly where they're at, not get into their freedoms or anything, but at the same time, we all know right now that weapon is a weapon of choice when somebody wants to go out and do something stupid.
Every answer you give, I got 5 more questions.
Okay.
So
and that's why I wanted to come on y'all guys' show.
Okay, sure.
Because so many times, individuals.
I get it. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to make sure that this is a productive interview. So let me just ask a couple. Let's do a kind of a lightning round here. So it sounds like you're saying that you would support registration of firearms, but you wouldn't support restriction. So people could still buy semi-automatic rifles. They could still buy shotguns, pistols, or whatever, but you believe that they should be registered.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Now, you said that I was a little confused when you were talking about background checks. You said, hey, I bought, you bought your gun, your pistol, and it took less than 15 minutes. Are you saying that there should be additional hurdles or additional background checks or some kind of additional a step if you're going to buy a semi-automatic rifle, or you're happy with the background check?
I'm glad you helped me clarify. What I'm saying is, if you are moved up to that AR-15, that additional weapon that we're talking about, specifically that weapon, then yes, it probably should be some additional questions of why are you buying this weapon? What is the purpose? You're still going to be able to get the weapon. You're still going to be able to get it.
Unless you answer the question in a way that you don't like, right?
That the government doesn't like.
Say that again, I apologize.
So let's say that I go to buy an AR-15. The form has a bunch of questions like, why are you getting this? I'm still going to be able to get that rifle as long as I answer the question in a way that the government likes. What if I answer the question like, I just want one?
I don't know what the question would be, but I would say this: as long as you don't have a criminal record or anything, you're going to get the weapon.
So why the question?
Isn't that the same thing that's happening right now? They're doing the background check, making sure you don't have a criminal record.
To be honest, ma'am, I don't know enough about what they're doing behind the scenes. What only thing I can tell you is when I walked in the gun store and there was a cool guys, they know me, but they know me as Shawn the veteran. They know me as Shawn the American hero. So when I gave the guy my driver's license, hell, I'm not even 100% sure because it happened so fast. It shocked me that he was saying, "Oh yeah, you're good to go." Whatnot. I just want to make sure that everything is in place. That when we walk a weapon out of the store, we make sure that we know if that weapon shows up somewhere else, we know who to go and find and go talk to.
So you definitely you want background checks when people purchase from a store. We want it to be registered so that we know who's got what. Those are those are your lines. Those are some of your some of your wants. But you don't want any bans on any specific hardware. Now let me ask you a couple. You've said weapons of war a couple of times. Do you think that the Second Amendment is there to protect your right to own a weapon of war?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I can't cut this baby two different ways. I support the Second Amendment, period. That means you can go out and get a weapon. Only thing I'm saying to you is when you get that weapon, we need to make sure that you're actually following all the best practices of keeping that weapon out of the wrong hands. That's the only thing that I'm actually saying. Because I have plenty of friends that are now retired that actually have that weapon, and it looks like the same weapon that we had when we was running around Afghanistan with all the bells and whistles on it. And I know they're very responsible.
Go ahead.
I have boots that look just like boots that military guys wear. Are they more boots?
They're pretty cool boots. You have the sand type or the ones that we used to shine?
No, not the shine. Not the shine. So I'm curious. So because it fits the visual of what you used in war, does that? I'm just trying to get clarification. There's lots of things that you would have there, but does that make them weapons of war or gear of war, or why? I feel like it should be a bit more than that.
I'm looking at the capability of the weapon itself. The capability of the weapon. That weapon was shoot off, depending on what's the modifications on it, anywhere from 10 to 15, 20 rounds in seconds. I just want to make sure, like I said before, they can go out and buy it. I just want to make sure that the weapons that are showing up on the streets that's actually going out and doing some of the mass killings that actually happen, we have a better understanding of who bought it, where's it at, the whole 9 yards. What I've been doing here inside the district, I've been talking to all of our police across the entire district and the sheriffs of saying, how can I help you get a better understanding of what's actually happening on the street? And the two things that they come to talk to me about, they say, hey, Shawn, if you coming from the sheriff's department, if you can help us get people that got mental health issues out of our jails and get them some help, because we don't actually have mental health in the district. And then the other piece is people that actually are having mental health issues. If we know they having mental health issues, we need a way to get those weapons out of their house temporarily, not taking their weapons, but to ensure that they don't have access to that particular weapon when they're having a crisis, because that's what we're dealing with here in the rural communities. Like I mentioned earlier, in the rural communities, we're struggling to have mental health facilities, and our mental health facilities now have turned into our jails for the weekend or for the week or whatever.
I feel like, I'll tell you what, Shawn, if I feel like I'm walking on like an icy sidewalk. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I got my footing, but it feels like I could slip and fall anytime now when I'm talking to you about this. How about this? Let me ask you, in all seriousness, I've been doing this for years. I run an organization that's pro Second Amendment. I have a podcast here, a show that's pro Second Amendment. I would argue that I know what I'm talking about philosophically and specifically. If you win, I'm going to give you my cell phone number when after we hang up. If you win, would you commit on the show right here that you would use me as a resource, me personally, my cell phone as a resource, to talk about gun policy, to talk about firearms policies, if it ever comes up? If you win and you're in Congress and any kind of firearm policy proposal, anything ever comes up, would you commit to giving me a call on my cell phone and let's talk about it? Because I feel like philosophically you're like right close, you're right there, but there are a lot of specifics that I think I can help you with.
I'll even do you one better. I won't just call you. I'll make sure we fly you into DC so you're sitting in the room with me when we actually putting things together.
Even better.
I want to be very clear. I believe in the Second Amendment. I'm not coming to take anybody's gun because nobody's coming to take mine, period. So that simply means is as you get into Congress and I have to get up there with all these different ideas, you're exactly right. You will be one of the people that we call and bring in and say, hey, where should we land on this particular subject? You got to also keep in mind, I represent Northwest Georgia. It's 800 some thousand people that I represent. And where we live, everybody carries.
Yeah.
Everybody carries. So because I chose to live in a place where everybody carries, because I know you can't see me, but because I live and carry a weapon every day, I'm not coming to take anybody's weapons. I just want to make sure that this weapon is somewhere safe and the individual that actually has it is going to be responsible and control this weapon so they don't get out there and kill a kid or kill somebody by mistake. And if they end up killing them, then I hope they have actually took their training. They know they're probably going to go to jail and have to answer some questions.
I got to tell you, we certainly don't. I mean, yeah, any monster that's out there killing people, and it's not in self-defense. I mean, we're completely with you on that, but it just, well, I think we've talked about it. I take you at your word. I would happily consult with you on any gun issue that pops up in Congress. I would happily fly into D.C. I love D.C. And I would love to help you. I really truly believe that philosophically you're right there, but there are just some nuances, some specifics, some details that I think I'd be a big benefit to you. So if I take you at your word, let's work together.
Yeah, I would agree with that because you got to keep in mind, I speak many a times of Shawn the individual, and plus the last 40 years, only thing I've done has been guns on top of guns. Yep,
no, I hear you. And I got to say, man, your career sounds fantastic. I was reading through there, and it looks absolutely awesome. And you're in God's country in Georgia. It's really, really beautiful. You're a stone's throw from Smyrna, right? Smyrna, Georgia.
Yes.
HQ
beautiful
of
part of state.
Glock was right there. I mean, it's like all the ingredients are there. We just got to put it in the pot and cook it for the right amount of time. That's how this feels. Okay, Shawn, give everybody your website, and then we're gonna wrap up the interview. I really appreciate it. But what's the website for people who want to check you out?
Yeah, the website is ShawnForGeorgia.com. You can spell that Shawn any kind of way you want to. That's not a problem. And I look forward to people coming to my website. On the website, we talk about a Second Amendment where I support it. And I want to thank you and everybody on your team for giving me the opportunity to be on your show, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be the Democrat that people just try to put in a box.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that says, look, I'm a gun owner. I respect gun owners. And at the end of the day, this is why I come on shows like you, because I want to have that conversation and try to help us get to whatever that right answer is supposed to be.
Well, I think that's great. And by the way, Shawn, I mean, we can't go on with this, with the Democrats treating us like we're evil. It's turned so extreme. So, you're somebody who's reaching out and you're saying, hey, I have the passion. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be wonderful. I appreciate you reaching out, and let's work together. I mean, I don't like that the Second Amendment has turned into this political football, that the Democrats get to use, that the Republicans get to use, that people who are Republicans, they vote for them and they haven't earned it, and that, Democrats beat us over the head with it so that they can get votes from there. It's got to stop. So, just because you haven't been exposed to the nuance and the terminology, whatever, fine, we can fix that, man. You and I can work together and fix that. I just appreciate your passion and your desire and the philosophy of it. The rest, we'll fill in the blanks, man.
All right. Well, hey, I just want to say thank y'all guys. I love going on shows where we can have an honest discussion, because I believe when I get to Congress, I'm going to be sitting in a lot of rooms where we don't agree on everything. The question is, what do we agree upon? And then how can we get the yes? That's one of the things I did in my last 2 assignments in the military as a senior defense official and in other places, is when you walk in that room, I'm here to tell you, it's 20 things on a piece of paper that we don't agree upon, but it's 2 or 3 we think we can get the yes on, and it's in our interest to get there. And that's how I look at this particular issue right here, is that I've always been a gun owner. I'm always going to be a gun owner. And I want to make sure that everybody else has the opportunity. If they want to have a weapon, they can go ahead and get it. And I know that's going to cause me some heat on the Democratic side, but that's why I say leadership matters. Hell, I'm not trying to be a celebrity. I'm just trying to represent the people in Northwest Georgia where I live. And everybody that I know that around here, you look at them close, you can see that weapon on their side.
Perfect. Thank you, Shawn. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you for coming on the show. Whew. Okay, so that was like, you know what that felt like?
A roller coaster.
It felt like a roller coaster. What I was going to say, it felt like I was teaching someone how to drive for the first time. And I'm going, whoa, slow down. Wait, hit the brake. Okay, here's what you got to do,
Felt like white knuckling it around a very steep cliff on like a road with no guardrails at night. I was like, I think, where are we going?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I know we're going to get into this, but I think a big part of it is in my mind, the whole time he was speaking, I'm thinking, we're in California. Mm-hmm. He's in Georgia.
Yep.
The climate, the whole lifestyle, what's normal there versus what's normal here, the things that he talked about may not be as strongly in effect there as they are here. So he's not felt the effects of it. And I think a lot of it is that when you come from a fresh viewpoint of we've not had this before and this sounds like a great idea, we've lived it. We can speak it. We can tell right. what does it really look like?
Yeah.
He hasn't lived that yet. And so I think a lot of it is, yes, it was uncomfortable to hear, but I think there is some value and we can share the reality of what happens with those kinds of things.
Well, and I think he's a perfect candidate for exactly what you offered, which is this is a guy who believes that he is pro 2A. Mm-hmm. We may disagree in some ways, right? Like hearing some of the things, I'm like, that's not very pro 2A. But I think that he wants to be pro 2A, and that he has been, just like so many people in the United States, indoctrinated by the Democrat Party to use terminology like weapons of war. And like that's not a well thought out position that he has. When he started talking about 10 or 15 rounds in a couple of seconds, I wanted to be like, I can shoot my Glock 19 15 rounds in a couple of seconds. Give me a 15 round magazine. It takes me like 3.5 seconds to dump that thing, right? Like that's not a logical thing. And he could get there if there was the time and the structure to have that whole conversation. He could get to the place where he's like, oh yeah, that's not the thing that matters. Rate of fire is not the thing that matters. Like, what are some things that might matter? He was trying to get to a place where I think we all could have agreed with him, but he's been indoctrinated by the
it boils down to what you said, Dakota, about how the law-abiding people are the ones that are going to be affected by these regulations, and they're not the ones causing the problems.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that was actually when we weren't recording, I mentioned something about, law-abiding folks are not the ones we have to worry about. So if you're thinking about passing laws about background checks and whatever, that's for the folks going to the FFL and getting a gun. And I was telling him before we were recording, like, the thing that matters is going after the people committing the crimes, right?
And the crimes, by the way, are already against the law.
Right, exactly. Like, let's enforce the laws we already have.
By definition.
And I think he was agreeing with that. So there, like I said, it feels like there's a lot of hope for him, but some of the things he was saying, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, well, it's a real strong point that, if you live in California or Maryland or Massachusetts or Virginia, New York or Illinois or now
Colorado, yeah.
You have like you practically have a law degree in gun ownership, because this crap it affects us so directly. And in Georgia, they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. They've never had a bullet button.
Right.
They've never had a 10-round magazine limitation. They've never had any of that stuff. But the other thing is, there's kind of 3 degrees here. Degree 1 is, hey, gee, they've never had to deal with this, and he's never had to experience this, and so that's degree 1. You move over a little bit, and it's but I don't want to cut him too much slack here either. I mean, this is serious business. If he isn't as educated on this as his opponent, then the opponent wins, as far as when it comes to gun owners, who they should vote for. But then the third level of this is activism is about addition, not division. And it's not about like, well, you got some little nuance wrong, so we're just going to completely pass it out. No, you got to educate and be a resource and go, hey, this person has 150 different subjects they got to worry about: taxes, immigration, blah, 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 all these other things. And we can be a resource for this little piece of the pie, and it's the entire pie for us. We care about this. We live this. We've dedicated our lives to this. This is, what's passionate. But to them, it's a small piece of the pie. But
100%.
I think that we could recognize that philosophically, this guy is, he is, somebody that can be educated, somebody that can be listened to. I mean, the guy gave me his cell phone number, so.
Well, it seems like he's open to learning. He's open to acquiring knowledge and to kind of realizing, maybe even acknowledging there's another side, and he seems open to learning.
And when he didn't know like what the background check process is like in Georgia, he admitted that. He's like, actually, I'm not educated enough on that to know exactly what I would want, which is the perfect answer. Perfect. Let's educate you. Let's explain what that looks like. And then the other piece of it is that he seemed, at least to me, like he's not the kind of guy who's going to go behind closed doors with his Democrat buddy and say, oh, like I was just saying all that stuff, I'm coming for everybody's guns. That's not him. He seems like he actually is a gun owner who wants people to have the right to own firearms, which is a huge step above so many other folks who are running on a, sort of tolerant 2A platform, but behind closed doors, they're like, if I could hit a button today and get rid of all the guns in America, I would. I didn't get that vibe from him at all.
No, and I think that this conversation we all did, we did things that you're supposed to do when you're talking to a candidate, a politician, when you're an activist. We asked very specific questions rather than just, oh, I believe in the Second Amendment. Well, let's get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
And then got him to commit to something,
Right.
which is extremely important. So
Yep.
anyway, there he is, Shawn Harris for Congress. He is in Northwest Georgia, and check out his website. And I'll send him a text after the show, and let's see what happens here. This could get real interesting.
Yeah.
My family's from Macon, Georgia.
What is?
My family's from Macon. That's
Your
where
family's from
that's
Macon?
where my family comes from,
that's
yeah.
so funny.
That's
yeah.
nice. Isn't that where?
It's not such a nice part of Georgia.
It's not. It's
But-
Georgia.
but-
I've been to Macon
Yeah,
before.
so have I. Thought that was interesting.
There you go. Okay. I've gone twice now, San Diego and Utah, and then this year it's Dallas. I just love it. I think it's great. It's so, and the thing I love about it is it's super, super useful. So I think people that are really truly passionate about doing the work, doing the activism, I think this is the conference.
Friday night's a reception for people out of town. The main event starts on Friday. In addition to the reception in the evening, there's 3 events that are occurring this year. You have AmCon, which is the Alternative Mass Media Conference, which is for people that are doing things like this. Podcasters, bloggers, where they can come, teach each other, network, learn things. We're also doing something a little different this year. We did break out a room for state groups to get together so that they can have a little bit more of an intimate session where some of the things that might not make sense to talk about with the general public, where people might get lost or not care as much, they're going to have the opportunity to kind of sit down with one another and teach each other more in depth about things they're doing and have that networking. And then we're also having a legal scholars conference again this year, which is something that's occurred on and off since the 70s. It's not been an annual thing. This year we did get it, COSIS did get it accredited as a CLE in Texas. We're going to work to build that to get accreditation in other states for lawyers who attend. So that one's going to be for lawyers so they can get their CLEs among other things. So that's Friday. Saturday is the main event. There's a reception in the evening, and then Sunday is a half day with more speakers, and everybody gets to go home after that.
It's very informative. It's very different than SHOT Show or the others because, like you said, you go and you see a series of speakers, and these are, everything from lawyers to activists. Sometimes you'll have gun industry people. Sometimes you'll have influencers, So I pay attention to the guest list this year. I think it'll be the best one yet. We'll have hopefully some, maybe even some people from Washington. We'll have to see if we get lucky on that front. GRPC is great for networking too as well. If you want to meet people in the field, not just the industry and not just the activists, but people actually making a difference, it's a great place to be.
So I don't know if you've heard, but there is an election for governor in the state of California. It's actually made national news. People are really focused on this, and it's a fairly interesting situation. There's been some movement. There have been some changes. What happened is, of course, it's an open field, which means there's no incumbent, so everybody's jumping in. On top of that, California has just had so many issues that a lot of people think, they're basically smelling blood in the water and saying, hey, this is the opportunity. Both Democrats and Republicans. And of course, Democrats outnumber Republicans so much in the state of California. If you look at the registration, number 1 is Democrats. Number 2 is decline to state. Number 3 is Republican. That's how bad the registration numbers are. So I wanted to show this is what the polling, of course, people have dropped out and people have jumped in, and there's just been a lot of movement. I wanted to bring you up to date. We're just 2 weeks away from the only polling that matters, and that's, of course, the big election. Your ballot is already out. So please return your ballot and vote. If you cannot find a candidate on there who's been endorsed by a Second Amendment organization, do not vote for them. I'm going to say that again. If you are looking at a candidate and they have not been endorsed by a Second Amendment organization, do not vote for them. But turn it in. If you didn't get your ballot in the mail, go down to the Register of Voters, but vote. Don't just vote. Get other people to go and vote and make sure this is really, truly an opportunity to do some good this election season. Okay, so let's talk about the governor's race. Pull up the first graphic. This is what the polling looked like back in February. You had Steve Hilton at 15, Katie Porter, Chad Bianco, 13, 12, et cetera, et cetera. Eric Swalwell was, of course, still in the race at 11%. Tom Steyer, people really hadn't heard of him yet. And Becerra, people had heard of him, but he hadn't really broken out. And then Matt Mahan, who's the mayor of San Jose, is in there. Anyway, that's what it looked like. And you can find other polls where, Chad was 13 and Katie was 12, but generally this is what the polling looked like in February. That's an important thing to know about polling. Polling is, people want to know, is polling accurate? Is it not accurate? Polling is always 100% accurate. Now, what I mean by that is they are looking at a subset of voters. So if they poll 1,000 people or 5,000 people or whatever, and they get these percentages, then yeah, that's the percentage of the people that they spoke to. That's what they answered. Now, is it accurate in the sense that this is exactly how the election's going to turn out? We all know that that's not how the elections are going to turn out. And it can vary wildly. However, generally this is looking for, you can look at trends. You can see generally how things are playing out, but man, you cannot count on this stuff. Now, this is the next poll. Pull up the second poll. The second poll is basically this week. There's been big changes. Becerra has really, really taken hold. Steve Hilton got bumped up a little bit. Tom Steyer got bumped up a little bit. Chad Bianco is falling behind. Now, I think what's going on here, and I want to talk about that, is, of course, Swalwell got booted. He's no longer in the race. And I think that people who were going to vote for Swalwell definitely went towards Becerra. And I honestly don't believe that Steyer picked up a bunch of Swalwell votes. They don't really match up that well.
I think some folks dropped Katie.
I
think
you're
more
yeah.
about Katie's come out, and you've seen her, interviews and stuff, and you're like, oh my goodness, she should not be the governor.
So bring it up again. So I think that you're absolutely right. I think that Katie Porter lost some support, and it probably went to Tom Steyer. I think that Tom Steyer also just started spending money, and he's spending an enormous amount of money, and more people who agree with his. He's very, very. I'd say describe him as progressive. He's very, very environmentalist. His economics are very socialist. I think that a lot of people started hearing his message and he picked that up. Chad Bianco, I think that Chad probably, it's not so much that he lost votes. I think that the pie is just carved up a little bit differently. I do think that he lost a few votes because Steve Hilton got endorsed by Trump. Now, the only people that care about that are Republicans. Mm-hmm. So I think some Republicans had this idea that, hey, we need to go with one person because that's the only chance we have of winning. So we're going to jump ship from Chad Bianco and go to Steve Hilton. And that probably accounts for a little bit of Steve Hilton's bump, but probably more significantly, the percentage points that Chad Bianco went down probably accounts for that. So okay, go ahead. So should we consolidate behind one candidate? That doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense, when I say we, they're generally talking about Republicans, or in our case, Second Amendment folks. What's going on is you're starting to see a bunch of pundits or advocates or talking heads or whatever you want to call them, people that are trying to influence you or want to influence you politically, they're starting to say, hey, now's the time to, pick Hilton because he's ahead in the polls and we got to consolidate behind him so we can win. The reality is they're trying to make sure that a Republican makes it through June, not because they think a Republican can win in November. None of these folks think a Republican can win in November. Let me repeat that. Mm-hmm. None of these people think that a Republican can win. They're not telling you to consolidate around Steve Hilton because they think Steve Hilton will win in November. They know he will not win in November. But if there is not a Republican at the top of the ticket, meaning at the literal top of your ballot, if there isn't a Republican there, it will affect voter turnout. people won't be as excited to vote. You know, if there is a Republican and they sell it and say, hey, we could win, you know, golly gosh, we could win, then more people will turn out to vote. And then more Republicans down at the bottom that take like city council members and mayors and whatever, they'll benefit from that. But I need you to understand that this is a strategic move, not a sincere move. In other words, they don't sincerely believe that Steve Hilton is going to win, or honestly, they don't believe that Chad Bianco will win. What their concern is they won't have any option, and that'll hurt voter turnout. You know, so Swalwell left. I want to talk about that for a second. Swalwell was a hit job by the Democratic Party. Swalwell did, I'm sure, allegedly, you know, did what they said. I'm not saying it was a setup or they're lying about what he did, but what I'm absolutely sure of is that the Democrats said, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna hurt us if our side is too diluted. We have to make sure that at least one Democrat makes it into the general election, because it was really looking like two Republicans were going to make it, and that's not still completely impossible, but it was really looking like, hey, with Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton at the top of the ticket, we might be shut out. So they went and said, okay, who do we have the most dirt on? Well, for years, everyone had known, allegedly, that Swalwell was, you know, misusing his power and doing things that were inappropriate with women, et cetera, allegedly. So they decided, okay, we're going to crush this guy. We're going to take him out. That's how that happened. It wasn't like they all of a sudden, oh my gosh, look what we've discovered. They'd known for years. They kept it in their back pocket. This benefited them. They didn't have dirt on anybody else, or at least they didn't have as much dirt on anybody else. So they took Swalwell out in order to make sure that a Democrat made it to the general. Now, if you look at some of these pollings, I really truly do believe that they have a little bit of their thumb is on the scale. You guys know what that means? Is that an old? You know what that means? If I say you have the thumb on the scale,
weighing it down more,
like a false.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you go to a deli and they say,
Yeah.
okay, you know, give me a pound of roast beef or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You put your thumb on the scale. You don't actually get a pound of roast beef, but you got to pay higher, you know.
Yeah.
Say in your favor. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Like the opposite of what I do at the Southwest counter, where I put my foot under my suitcase to like lift it a little bit so I'm under the 50 pounds. Like the opposite of that.
Life hack.
Just kidding. I don't do that. But I did see it on a TikTok. I was like, that's a good idea.
So I do believe a lot of these, because it was right when it was decided, hey, we need to make sure that a Republican makes it through the primary. All of a sudden, you know, Steve Hilton had these favorable numbers, and Chad Bianco started to fall. And there's a lot of ways you can play with surveys, you know, and show numbers, you know, to do that. So I do think there's a little bit of a thumb on the scale in Steve Hilton's favor. The idea that a British Trump-endorsed Fox News host has a chance of winning in the state of California is ludicrous. And I, you know,
It sounds like an intro to a Saturday Night Live clip or something.
you know, it's just us talking here, guys. The entire, you know what I mean? Millions of voters aren't going to hear this, but, and I say that because it is important that there's some excitement on the other end of the election. We do need excitement in November, but I want you guys to hear the truth. And the truth is that everybody knows, you know, that he's not going to win. There's no way in hell that this candidate, not just any random Republican, but this candidate is going to win in the state of California. And it's just kind of ludicrous to even suggest.
But did you know he served as director of strategy for the British Prime Minister from 2010 to 2012?
So, and that's
like his whole claim to fame.
But that's all he's got.
Yes, I know. It's hilarious.
I mean, if you really look at, you know, I don't think it's no secret that I'm a fan of Chad Bianco, and you know, our organization endorsed him, and you know, but I'm telling you the truth here. You know, this just isn't going to happen. But what is even sillier about this whole thing is you have somebody who said a lot of things, Steve Hilton, done almost nothing,
right?
And then you have a guy who, you know, isn't as polished But he's actually done things. He's actually been a part of policy. He's actually gotten elected. He's actually he actually has executive experience where Steve Hilton has none, has absolutely none, not one lick of experience of being an executive. So I want to talk about. I brought up some graphics. These are extremely well done graphics. You guys are going to be so impressed by my ability here.
Okay.
But I want to show you the. What are the chances? What are we actually looking at? Well, I think the best chance we got, pull up the first slide. The most likely scenario, I should say, the most likely scenario is that a Democrat and a Republican will win in June, one of each. And if you believe the polls right now, it's probably going to be Becerra versus Hilton.
Yep.
That could change, Becerra could.
Got a lot of time.
Yeah, it could, I don't know, whatever. But people are already voting, and if the polls are reflective of the way people are going to vote, but I do think that the most likely scenario in June is that a Democrat and a Republican move on to the general election. Now, what's the second most likely scenario? The second most likely scenario is that 2 Democrats win in June.
Yep.
That's actually more likely than the other way around. And if 2 Democrats win in June, then of course a Democrat wins for governor. Third most likely scenario, if we bring that up, a Republican and a Republican win in June. Oops, damn governor. Who did these graphics? So
Wait. That's actually a possibility, though, right? Like 2 Republicans make it, and then they're like, oops, somehow everybody wrote in a Democrat.
I know, right? But what I'm trying to say is that if you have a Republican, and it doesn't matter if it's Steve Hilton or Chad Bianco, if you have a Republican running against a Democrat, that Republican
is going to lose.
He's going to lose. He's going to get about 40% of the vote. About 40%. Maybe he gets 42% if people are super excited. Maybe he gets 38% if he missteps and people don't get super excited. But this idea that there's a red wave coming and people are ready for change or whatever is just delusional, guys. Yeah. And the idea that a Republican can beat a Democrat in this race is completely delusional. What we're trying to do, or what people are trying to do, is get a Republican through, so at least that top of the ticket, there is somebody to vote for and somebody to take into account. Now, this top of the ticket idea is very effective, and they do this a lot. Just about every cycle, there's some kind of proposition. And it's a race for Republicans and Democrats to get some kind of proposition in California on the ballot. Why? Well, yeah, we want the proposition to pass because it's probably some, public policy that one side or the other agrees on.
Yeah.
But the reality is it gets people excited. Like, for example, voter ID is going to be on the ballot.
Right.
Which means they're going to require ID to vote. And the other one, there's a Protect Prop 13. Prop 13 is, keeps your taxes, your property taxes very low. Yep. So do they want both those things to happen? Yes, they want both those things to happen. What they really want to happen is that people get motivated by voter ID and people get motivated by protecting Prop 13 and show up and vote, and that benefits all the other elected officials that are on the ballot. So that's what's going on when it comes to, I wanted to basically shoot you straight and tell you, hey, here's what's going on. I'm not telling you not to get excited about the governor's race, but there are a lot of other races out there that you can actually have an effect. You can actually get involved and help them win. Particularly here in San Diego, Christy Bruce Lane, running for state senate. That's somebody you can actually help win. There are going to be a number of city council members that are going to win by a slim margin, and the difference is going to be whether or not you help, whether or not you give them a donation, or whether or not you show up and stuff some envelopes and get involved in their race. This governor's race, you're not going to have an effect, and it's pretty much already baked in. So get involved. You can move mountains on these city councils. You can move mountains when it comes to the assembly or state senate. There are some real races that are competitive. We want you to get involved where you can be effective. So there you go. That's the little bit on the governor's race. You guys, anything? What do you guys think?
No, I mean, there's some other interesting stuff coming up. San Diego, there's that Measure A thing, which is so funny to me that they basically what it's saying is like, if your house is sitting vacant, you got to pay an extra tax. Well, whatever. But literally San Francisco passed like the same thing, and millions of dollars were spent fighting it in court, and a judge ruled it was unconstitutional. And it's like the same thing. It's like, okay, so
naturally
let's
we're going to pass it here in San Diego.
Yeah, so let's pass it and then spend taxpayer money to fight it in court. Like, I'm just like, what is this logic? So, their politics always keeping me laughing.
All right. Well, there you go. Get involved. If you want to get involved, go to SanDiegoCountyGunOwners.com or SDCGO.org. We have volunteer opportunities galore. Thank you so much for your support. At the very least, if you haven't become a member of San Diego County Gun Owners, make a donation to San Diego County Gun Owners so that we can help the folks get elected that we've vetted and made sure that respect your Second Amendment rights. So there you go. So the lifeblood of every organization is membership. We absolutely need membership. And you as a Second Amendment activist want to be involved. You want to help make things better. And we have a way for you to be involved, get involved, and stay involved. Look at our volunteer page. If you go to sdcgo.org/volunteer, we keep it up to date, and there's always an opportunity for you to get more involved. Our bread and butter are our shooting socials, where we teach people how to shoot. They've never had a shooting experience. Maybe they're brand new to shooting and they want to have a first-time shooting experience. You can help us do that. Or if you want to help spread the word, we have tabletops at different gun shops, at different events, and you can volunteer to tell people more about the Second Amendment, more about how to get a CCW, or more about being a member of an organization like SDCGO. The good news is it's super easy. We'll help train you. We'll help you get involved. We'll give you the opportunity to do good things.
If you don't have the time to volunteer, there's another way that you can help too. We are always looking for folks to donate. And if you want to pledge $5,000 in this next year, we will have you on our show as a guest host. So come join us in the studio. We would love to have you here for one episode, and that is for a price of $5,000.
$5,000 donation to San Diego County Gun Owners gets you a guest host with me and Dakota and Alicia, and you get to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and you get to do whatever you want to right here on Gun Owners Radio. So thank you so much. Whatever you do, just do a little bit more than you did last year and help us defend and preserve the Second Amendment right here in your backyard.
We're going to talk a little bit about the mosque shooting that happened here in San Diego earlier this week. Obviously, this was a nationwide news story, but it hits really close to home for some of us. I personally have a couple of friends who attend this mosque, some coworkers as well, and this was one of those things where the mosque did everything right. They knew that there was a chance that they would someday be the victims of a horrible crime like this, and they did everything they could. They had tall fences around the entire property. They had security cameras on every inch of the premises, both inside and outside of the building, and they had armed security guards present. These are not just like rent-a-cop kind of security. They had dudes with handguns and AR-15s slung over their chests, bulletproof vests, the whole thing. When you drive by this facility, it's pretty evident that they are ready and prepared and have done whatever they can to protect their members and to protect the kids in their K through third grade school on the property. I truly believe that this attack was a well thought out, kind of planned attack, and that the response was as efficient and quick as you could ever hope for any religious center or school to have. The response was nearly immediate. From the moment that the shooters drove into the parking lot, the security guard began engaging them within seconds of them entering the premises. That is the type of instant response that you can only hope for in a situation like this. Security's guard name was Amin Abdullah. He slowed them down. He exchanged gunfire with the shooters, and he actually successfully hit one of them at one point in the exchange. After he was engaging them, he was actually still able to put the school on lockdown by radioing in, and that definitely saved lives that day. Unfortunately, he was killed in the interaction with the shooters, and he passed away in the parking lot of the mosque. After he was killed, 2 other people ran to try to assist, and their names are Manzoor Kaziha and Nadir Awad. Nadir Awad actually lived in a home across the street from the mosque, and when he heard gunfire, he ran out and tried to assist. Some reports are saying that he tried to take Min Abdullah's firearm and use it to shoot the shooters, and I don't have perfect details on that piece of it. I'm not sure if that is true, but what we do know for sure is that he ran across the street to aid and to try to distract the shooters and draw them out of the building, which actually worked. The shooters look out the window, they see these 2 men, Manzoor and Nadir, out in the parking lot, and they decided to leave the building and go fight those 2 men. Unfortunately, both of those men lost their lives in this situation, but the shooters did feel like the rapid fight back was enough for them to give up, and they both get in their vehicle and drive away after successfully killing Manzoor and Nadir. So these 3 men, without a doubt, saved so many lives. This was already, a national story. Everybody has heard about it. But without those 3 heroes, it is very possible that this would have been, the next Sandy Hook, the next situation where we've got, dozens of children killed. These shooters came prepared. They had lots of firearms. They had lots of ammunition on their body, and they definitely could have done a lot more damage. So the rapid response of these 3 heroes is definitely something that we should all... I'm getting emotional.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You should. It's a horrible thing.
I know, it is.
That's all right.
I think that these 3 folks did something that all of us should be so thankful for. We should be so happy that there were 3 brave men there that day who took the actions that they did. There were other people in the school who believe, from the surveillance footage, that the shooters were only about 15 feet away from a room full of children. So just knowing the gravity of the situation, this rapid response definitely saved lives. So
I saw that a couple of different places. In fact, the police chief was adamant about, hey, he said, at first, when he heard about it and got a briefing, he said, wow, this guy was clearly a hero. And then once he reviewed everything that had happened, he said he had no idea the extent of exactly how much this guy put himself into harm's way and saved lives and followed his training. And while he was in the middle of a gunfight, was able to use his radio and say, hey, whatever their code is to lock this place down, which absolutely saved lives. The other thing, you and I were talking, Dakota, that it was very clear that the reason it wasn't worse, the reason that the 2 killers fled was because they were fighting back, because there was an effective defense there by one armed guy who I guess sounds like turned into 2 armed guys, because we think
perhaps,
he took the guy's gun. And
some articles are saying that the neighbor that ran across the street was able to get the gun from the security guard, but other reports are saying that he tried but couldn't get there because the suspects were shooting in that direction, and so he kind of had to retreat. So I haven't seen that footage myself, so I don't know exactly. But either way, Manzoor Kaziha, who was an elder at the mosque, who was there, he was the first person to call 911, and then you know that in that because the police response was only 4 minutes.
4
Police
minutes, yeah.
arrived 4 minutes later, which is unheard of. But that first phone call was made at 11:43, and there's also some evidence that perhaps the sound of police sirens coming to the mosque was another thing that pushed the killers out of the mosque property and into the neighborhood. So whether it's, the 911 call combined with the gunfight that saved all those kids' lives, either way, it was the rapid response of the people that were there at the time who did everything that they could and gave their lives for those kids.
So from first shot to them fleeing the property, what was the approximate time on that? Do you remember?
2 minutes and 44 seconds from when they pulled into the parking lot to when they pulled out of the parking lot.
That is such a short amount of time.
Yes.
3 lives taken.
3 lives taken.
And hundreds more at risk.
And a defense established, in that time. That is such a short amount of time. But had it been long, just think about how much worse it would have been had it been longer. Had they
not had the security
defended,
right, like the rest of our schools.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 2 minutes and 44 seconds of them being on the property. Not all of that was active shooting,
Right.
but most of it was, because it started pretty quick when they got out of their car. But think about, even in the best situation, the first cop is at least 4 minutes away, at least.
Yeah.
And in this situation, this was one of the fastest police response times we've ever seen in San Diego for anything. This is an insanely quick response time. We saw police response from all over the county. I actually was driving near the 805 when this was happening. I didn't know what was happening, but I saw more cop cars heading towards, Claremont than I had ever seen anywhere at once in my whole life. I probably saw 120 cop cars. I was like, something big is happening.
SDPD, sheriff, SWAT.
Yeah, everybody showed up, and thankfully by that point they weren't really needed except for the aftermath, because the shooters had already left and had already died. But the idea here that you are your own first responder and that these children could have been getting shot at for this entire 4 minutes is just devastating to think about. And, obviously everybody in that community feels like these 3 men are heroes, and we should remember their names.
Excellent job. Was there anything else we want to talk about on this? Or do you think we covered it all?
I think we covered it.
I think we covered it all too.
Yeah.
I think that it was amazing and horrible and tragic. And I'm thankful they took the steps to have security, and I'm thankful that this security guy, rose to the occasion. And not just him, but a random neighbor from across the street. That's pretty phenomenal.
His wife did teach at that school, so I think she was in the building. The neighbor that ran across, his wife was in the building at the time.
That was
so that definitely
amazing motivation for him to do it.
Yeah, but either way, these 2 unarmed men willing to draw out and distract 2 very armed teenagers, in an attempt to get them away from the children is so heroic. So
yeah, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I just truly feel strongly that it's turned into a cliche where we talk about how, hey, we get armed people to defend our money and our politicians and our journalists at dinners in Washington D.C. But we leave our kids out there because of a political agenda, frankly, because of optics. And this is such proof positive that bad things are going to happen. This maybe didn't prevent bad things from happening, but man, it sure prevented it from being so much more horrific than it absolutely looked like it was going to be. If he wasn't sitting there, and we have no idea why they chose this particular place, but imagine if they didn't have any security at all. This would have just been so much worse. So much worse. So many more people would have been hurt and died. So I just don't understand the argument why aren't we protecting our kids? And we were talking about it earlier in the show. I've heard it from a candidate running for Congress who's a Democrat in Georgia. We heard it from a candidate who's running for governor out here in California. And I'm tired of the pushback. It clearly works. It clearly deters, and even when it doesn't deter, it clearly stops things from being so much worse. And anyway, I think you did a great job, Dakota. And
well, and more as more information comes out too, like we will talk about other ways to, you know, stop some of this stuff from happening, right? Like there are other things, but what's relevant right now in this conversation with what we already know is that these three guys were heroes. Later on, as more comes out, I'm sure we'll cover a little bit about, you know, were there red flags that these shooters showed in the community that should have been, you know, flagged? Were there other signs and symptoms? You know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that there was a 911 call made a few hours before the shooting began by one of the shooter's mothers, you know, saying that her son had stolen some weapons in her car and was suicidal. You know, I'm sure we'll be learning more about the police response to that and whether, you know, there was more that could have been done in prevention. But the point of kind of this segment today in this conversation is that there are evil people out there. They are going to succeed at starting evil actions. And the only difference between a ginormous tragedy and a really sad thing that resulted in only a few, you know, folks dying is who is there at the time and are they willing to act right then and there. And that's really what it comes down to. You know, we'll talk more about prevention and stuff in a future episode as more comes out. But one other thing I did want to mention, just because it got such widespread media attention, is that there were photos of the two shooters blasted on like every media platform that you can think of, every news, you know, source. And one of the photos was not one of the shooters. It was a kid named Jacob Vasquez that lives in Claremont Mesa. He was not a shooter in this situation, and his face was plastered all over news articles about this. And, you know, his life is going to be in some ways forever changed because of bad journalism, because of folks being too quick to run with a story that wasn't fully out. And I feel so bad for this kid who had nothing to do with this, who literally just was an acquaintance of one of the shooters and happened to have a similar name. And so people, internet sleuths, said, oh, since they know each other, it must be this guy. It's such a sad thing. He's come out, and I've seen some local news cover it. He has talked about, you know, hey, I had nothing to do with this. Please stop sending death threats. Please stop showing up at my house. His address got doxxed. And I haven't seen a lot of national news coverage on it. So I just want to kind of mention that because it may not be as widespread that that's actually not what he looks like. But it was just a really sad situation where folks ran with a story before it was fully cooked.
Good. Awesome job. Thank you so much. Good job, Dakota. Appreciate you giving all those details.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Hey, quick question. If you carry every day, when's the last time you actually wiped down your firearm? Yeah, exactly. Probably a long time. Problem is, sweat, lint, moisture, it builds up fast, and you know you should be taking care of it, but life gets in the way. That's why I like the Seal One gun rag. I just keep it right next to my EDC, and at the end of the day, you do a quick wipe with your Seal One gun rag. It only just takes a few seconds. I mean, it's super, super easy. Cleans, lubricates, protects, all in one step. Smells nice too, so you can dab it behind your ears and use it as aftershave. Go grab a Seal One gun rag at your local store and make it a part of your routine. Seal One gun rag, check them out. All right, time for everybody's favorite segment, Stump My Nephew. Sam's my nephew, extremely good with gun trivia. So if you have a gun trivia question, email us, write us, text us, whatever, get it to us. If we use it on the air, you get a hat or shirt. If you Stump My Nephew, and good luck with that. You'll get a very special prize. Sam, how's it going, man?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Okay, who wants to read the question?
Go for it.
There you
All
go.
right.
Miss Alicia.
I'll do it. All right. Hey, Sam.
Hi.
All right. So your question today comes from Larry, and I do not know where Larry is from. So
he was
Larry
La
Feynman.
Jolla, actually.
La Jolla. All right. Larry Feynman from La Jolla. His question is, what smokeless powder ammunition? I apologize.
Yeah, start over.
Scratch that. Start over. All right.
Go ahead.
What is smokeless powder ammunition? Which country was the first to widely adopt smokeless powder ammunition for military use in the late 19th century? And what was the cartridge? So there's 3 parts to this question.
Larry from La Jolla. So the 3 parts, one of them was what was the first cartridge to use smokeless powder, and what was the first country, right?
What is smokeless powder? What
is
country
it?
was the first?
What country used it first?
And what cartridge?
And in what cartridge? It's funny. I just had a friend asking me about this a few weeks ago.
Well, who doesn't have a friend that was
won't
asking
catch
this question? It's been all
he
over
won't-
the place.
He won't catch the interesting coincidence of this, but when you see, I don't know, Revolutionary War reenactments or Civil War reenactments, or I don't know if you guys have Civil War reenactments out there, because it wasn't fought in California.
Yeah.
Half of the Civil War by number of battles was fought right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I have seen occasionally Civil War reenactments. The gunpowder they were using back then, and from the beginning of when the first firearms were invented, and even before that, when the ancient Chinese were using rockets in warfare, the gunpowder they were using is what we now call black powder. And that is a roughly 5-to-1 mix of potassium nitrate, or saltpeter as it was called in antiquity, sulfur, and charcoal, all of which are fairly easy to come by. It wasn't until the 1880s that smokeless powder was developed. And the advantage of smokeless powder isn't just that it doesn't give away your location as much, because there isn't that huge plume of smoke, and it doesn't obscure the battlefield, again, because of the plumes of smoke of thousands of soldiers firing their muskets. But it also has different properties when it combusts. The pressure curve is different. It enables, I'm not a chemist, so I don't want to speak outside my area of expertise here, but as I understand it, smokeless powder increases in burn rate more dramatically at higher pressures than black powder does, which lets you get more power out of a shorter barrel. But anyway,
interesting.
The first smokeless
Chinese
powder,
eh?
The first smokeless powder that came around in the 1880s is what we call nitrocellulose, and that is manufactured by soaking cellulose or cotton, hence gun cotton, which is that's a source of cellulose, in nitric acid, and some kind of amazing chemical reaction that I can't explain because, again, I'm not a chemist, occurs, and you get something that burns very rapidly, and that's a primitive single base smokeless powder. The first to figure that out on an industrial scale were the French. In 1886, they came out with the 8mm Lebel cartridge, which was just a necked down 11mm Gras, I think. And it fired a 8mm bullet, I think 210 grains, 220 grains, something like that. And they like revolutionized infantry combat pretty much instantly with this amazing new technology, smokeless powder. They knew they would not have control over that technology for long. So their first smokeless round, the 8mm Lebel, was kind of primitive and had some weird geometry to it. But they were just like, it's good enough, ship it. Pretty soon the secret got out. The Swiss figured it out. A bunch of other countries stole it from either the French or the Swiss, or figured it out themselves. Mostly stole it from them, or then from each other. So pretty quickly the Germans caught on, and the Americans, and so on and so forth, and the cat got out of the bag. But the French were the first in 1886 with the 8mm Lebel. I believe that answers all 3 parts of the question.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. I mean, like on the nose, nailed it. fantastic job.
It is crazy to see like every single piece of the answer coming out of your mouth.
It is pretty crazy.
I think it's hilarious that somebody just last week.
So, yeah, I know.
What did
I was just talking about that. Okay, awesome job. I want to talk about your survey. Can we talk about your survey?
Mm-hmm. That was really
Yes, I'm excited to talk about that.
Okay, good. So, and in fact, I want to, if we can, while you do it, a little intro. We're gonna actually bring it up. We're gonna bring the article up. So, go ahead, talk about the survey. What was the catalyst? By the way, you can find the survey if you go to gunownersradio.com/blog, where you can find all of Sam's articles that he does on Second Amendment, guns, etc. What was the inspiration? What made you do this survey? Because you've been working on it for a while.
I like data. There's sort of a dearth of good concealed carry, like really granular concealed carry data out there. John Lott has done some research as to like how many people as a proportion of population have permits, but I don't think he or anyone else has really drilled down farther than that. So what I wanted to know is not just how many people are carrying, but who's carrying by age group, what are they carrying, how long have they've been carrying, how do they incorporate that into their lifestyle? And that's really the question I was asking here. How do people incorporate concealed carry into their lifestyles? So for now, 6 months and 1 day, for what it's worth, I've been running a survey online. I put out a blog post 6 months ago called Help Me Collect Concealed Carry Survey Data. And the survey is linked in there and in this blog post you see here on your screens. You can still respond to it. There's still time. I haven't published all the results yet, so you will still be able to affect the results if you're listening and you haven't answered yet. Please do so. And it's totally anonymous. You're not saying, hi, I'm Larry from La Jolla and I carry thus and such, and here's how you can steal it out of my truck. No.
You're not compromising.
It's anonymous.
No.
Yeah.
It's totally anonymous.
So what are some of the questions? Give us some example of some of the questions that you asked.
Well, actually, let me pull it up on my other computer here. I split it into 3 parts, and it took me so long, or so long in terms of word count, to tabulate all the results and break them down that I'm splitting this into 3 blog posts accordingly. So the questions included things like, how old are you? How often do you carry? How long have you been carrying? And then I have questions asking about hardware, equipment questions in the next section. Do you carry an autoloader or a revolver? What caliber is it? Do you switch between different guns or do you just have one carry gun? What kind of holster do you use? Not brand, but style. Then in the third
what
section,
stood out once you got the results? What's something that stood out or surprised you or pleasantly surprised you, or give me a highlight that you were particularly impressed with?
Something that impressed me from section 1, background questions, was the answers to the question, how often do you shoot the handguns you carry? And I had expected it to be about maybe 1 in 4 people shoot their carry gun or carry guns once a month or more often. And then the other 3/4 shoot less than once a month. In fact, the answers were the exact opposite. A little bit more than 3 in 4 people shoot their, this is not just go to the range and shoot some, shoot your 10/22 or whatever. This is people's guns that they carry with them every day or almost every day. More than 3 in 4 people are shooting them at least once a month, which, based on what I've heard from many instructors, I'm not an instructor myself, but the general consensus seems to be you got to shoot at least once a month to just maintain your skill proficiency and not get worse. Then maybe 2 or 3 times a month if you want to get better, at least, maybe once every 2 weeks or once every week to get better. So it looks like most people are, at least maintaining their proficiency. Only 23.5% of people shoot less than once a month. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, and you and I talked a little bit about, it looks like, I don't think this is a big surprise, won't be a big surprise to us or anybody that spends a lot of time with guns, but it looks like 9mm has clearly won the war If
Yeah.
it were, if it were like, if it were really truly a battle between 9 and whatever, 45 or whatever, 9 has just pulled way ahead, and everybody has a 9.
And crucially, 9mm is so prevalent that even people who have multiple carry guns, they switch between. Maybe, if it's cold outside, they'll carry their 45 or whatever. Almost everyone at least has a 9mm handgun they carry, even if it isn't their only carry gun. So that's interesting to see. And it makes sense because there's such a great variety of 9mm pistols that fit into every sort of lifestyle, all the way from the micro compacts, like your Ruger LCP and the LCP's 380, the LC9 and EC9S, all the way up to people carrying Glock 19s and Glock 45s and whatnot. Something I really liked about something I mentioned in this blog post, just breaking down the questions in the first section, is the fact that people are training so much, not just because that's good, but the fact that people are training at least once a month, bare minimum, generally, without being required to. Something I point out is that police departments generally don't require qualification any more than about twice a year, maybe quarterly, but a lot of them are either twice a year or once a year. And when you get your concealed carry permit as just a regular average Joe, not a police officer or whatever, you get it and it lasts 2 years, 5 years, whatever, and you are not required to go back to a range and qual according to a specific course of fire and fire from multiple positions and all that stuff. You're not required to do anything to maintain your permit until it expires and you have to re-up it. You can shoot in your training class and then never shoot your carry gun again, but people don't do that. Without being required to, people are making sure that they fit that trained part of sane, trained, law-abiding citizen who's out there carrying a gun in public.
Phenomenal. All right, cool. Anything else you want to point out? Any questions?
I think I just want to say that really quick, that survey is so interesting, and there's so many folks listening to this that haven't done it, because I can't remember exactly the number you said, but it was like 70 people.
67 people.
67 people. So, I mean, if we could get you a ton more data, we're going to be able to get a much better look at, like, what does this actually mean across a broader swath of concealed carriers. I think most of the folks who filled this out probably were like San Diego County gun owners people and whatever. So,
what I'm thinking I should have done all this time was how this is part of my CCW class.
Oh, that would be
fun. Put a big QR
fun.
code up on the screen at the beginning and let them complete it.
That's super fun. Maybe I'll send it out to my email list. I have like 700 people on an email list. I could send it.
We'll get you more numbers then.
Yeah, we'll get you more
Thank
people.
Awesome
And
job, Sam.
Something you can talk about in your class again is I say in the post, this should be heartening even to anti-gun people that your average random person on the street carrying a gun concealed trains more often than cops are required to. There you go.
There you go. Awesome job. If you want to read the survey, take the survey, go to gunownersradio.com/blog and look for the survey article.
It's the very top blog.
Very first one. So great job, Sam. Great job on the question. Great job on the survey. And we will talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me on as always. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
A lot of you took our off-grid communications class in El Cajon, and the feedback we got is that you wanted more than just the gear. You wanted to know how to use the gear when it matters. So here's what we did. We built the next step: tactical communication and signal intelligence. That's the evolution of the course that you took. On May 30th in El Cajon at Cargo, which is a fantastic shop if you haven't already been there. So because most people rely on information that's either late or filtered, if that's you, you're already behind. We'll show you how to use off-grid radios and real-world signals that understand what's happening in real time, so you're not guessing or waiting on someone else. The bottom line is this is about having an information advantage. So spots are limited. You want to take this class, Tactical Communications and Signal Intelligence, on May 30th in El Cajon at Cargo. Go to gunownersradio.com so that you can secure your slot right now.
Still tracking that breaking news out of Kent. There has been a massive police response right outside a home in the Star Lake neighborhood. King 5's Farah Jadrin has been at the scene all morning. So Farah, you just got some new information on what happened.
We did, Christine. We know the homeowner shot an alleged home invasion robbery suspect, and we just learned that suspect has life-threatening injuries. They were transported to Harborview Medical Center. Now, behind me, you can see the crime scene investigation unit vehicle is still here. They've been here now more than 5 hours alongside detectives and other Kent police officers. This all happened just before 3 o'clock this morning. We want to show you video we got when we first arrived here. Shows you 10 to 12 police units here. That's when the call went out, just before 3 o'clock. The people who live here at the home said that multiple people entered their residence armed with weapons. The homeowner shot at them, hitting one of those suspects multiple times. That male suspect, again, taken to the hospital with their injuries. The other suspects ran off, according to police, and we do know the Federal Way Police K-9 unit was here. They were working to track down those suspects as well. So unclear yet if they've tracked down those other suspects yet. No word that anyone's in custody. Now, you're seeing a live picture now, more than 5 hours after the call first went out. This is the home where the alleged home invasion robbery happened. Kent police are still here. We've seen them talking to folks who live here at the home. And just imagine just before 3 o'clock in the morning, this happening at your home. Terrifying moments for the people that live here and perhaps any neighbors who may have heard anything. We've seen the school buses go by for Evergreen Middles and Star Lake Elementary just down the road and other schools near here. So a lot for families and even the children going to school to take in this morning. King 5 will continue to follow this story as that suspect remains in the hospital and anything else that develops here as police work with the family through this situation. Live in Kent, Farah Jadrin, King 5 News.
All right, it's time for Curtain Call. Her name's Alicia Curtin, so we call this segment Curtain Call, where she goes over defensive gun use instances that have made it in the news. Today is influencer's pregnant girlfriend hid their baby in a closet before she shot dead an intruder. And this comes from the New York Post. So what do we got going on?
So this is a story. This was last year. So this is not a super recent occurrence. But what happened is we had a case of a family, a pregnant mom who also had a baby, and her husband. He was an influencer, right? A social media influencer. And and that plays a role. The reason I'm mentioning that is that plays potentially a role is they believe that that is part of why this family might have been targeted. So basically what happened is a man by the name of, let me catch his name, a man by the name of Shelby Hurd broke into this family's home, and only the wife and the baby were home. Her husband was not, but they did have a firearm in the home. This guy broke into their home. He did have a screwdriver, and he also has a criminal history.
Jeez.
He is not new to crime. He has previous charges for burglary. He broke into this home, and the mom, pretty. If you've never been in a traumatic moment, I will tell you that your mind goes into weird places. She did an amazing job. She hid the baby in a closet to get the baby in a safe place away from her because of the unknown of what's going to happen. She got that firearm, and she did take that shot, and she did hit him in the head, and it did end up taking his life.
Wow. This is them right here? This is the couple?
Yeah. That's them there.
And she was pregnant and
She
had a
was
baby.
also pregnant and had a baby, correct. So she put the baby in a closet where it could be put safer than in her arms, and did what she had to do. And the article also mentions how she had never even fired a firearm before.
Jeez.
So, you know, I mean, of all the things, right? Middle of the night, breaks into the home. It's scary. It's very scary. She did what she had to do.
The guy had a screwdriver, you said?
Had a screwdriver. Yep. And a criminal history.
And he had just been released on parole,
Correct.
I think, like 4 or 5 months before this happened. So he had just gotten out.
Yep.
So this doesn't sound like a crazy guy. It sounds like a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like a career criminal.
Absolutely. And they believe that potentially the husband having this flashy lifestyle and his, you know, showing his home and his jewels and his cars and all of his things might have attracted, you know, some attention. So, you know, just as far as learning points, one is, have you ever given some thought to a plan? I know I have kids in the home and things, if something were to happen, you know, you got to kind of think of all the what ifs. What if? What maybe should I do? What could I do? Maybe do I need to stage things? Maybe do I need to rearrange things? Have a plan. And having a firearm in the home is absolutely an important step. She claims to have never shot before. I don't love that, but she did enough. She did enough.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and
I'll bet you that's going to change.
I sure hope so.
I bet you she's going to go take a class or two.
Absolutely hope so. Yeah. And she didn't hesitate to protect her family. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
That part, I got to tell you, man, that part right there always gets me when you hear about somebody. Okay, so for example, when you hear about like a school or something where some lunatic murderer goes in and hurts a lot of people, and you say, hey, it would be so much better if these teachers were able to defend themselves when they're in school. There's a lot of solutions, right? There's a lot of solutions, but that's one of them. That's one possible one. And when you hear the other side, the anti-gun side, when they hear that and they go, oh, gee, golly, and they like, you know, they treat these teachers like they're completely and totally incompetent, you know, like, oh, well, they could never, oh, gee, golly, it's so complicated. Oh. And here you have an influencer. She didn't look like she was much over 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
She didn't look like she was 30 years old. She wasn't trained,
Not
you know,
trained.
and she was still able to defend herself and her kid. You know, she did something that she'd never even done before. And we're simply saying, hey, if someone has the desire and gets the training,
Right.
they should be able to defend themselves and kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and it's completely reasonable to
Absolutely.
suggest that. And stories like this just, you know, just kills me that, you know, hey, she's absolutely capable. She's completely and totally motivated enough. She was in the right mindset and she was able to do it without any training.
Right.
So imagine, which is exactly why a firearm, you know, is the great, you know, equalizer. I mean, yes, you should get training. Yes, you're going to be better with training. Yes, you should do a lot of training. But the reality is a firearm is so effective and so easy to use that this woman was able to figure it out, you know, having never shot one before. That's how effective and easy to use they are, you know? So anyway, it just drives me nuts.
My guess is the gun was loaded. I doubt that she had like to put rounds in a magazine and then put the magazine in the gun. My guess is the boyfriend had it staged somewhere. She knew where it was. She knew how to get access to it. She was able to just grab the gun out of the case or wherever it was and retreat with the baby to get to, you know, what she thought the safest option was at the time. I absolutely hate when folks say you need to have some minimal level of training in order to have a gun, because we see stories like this pretty often. It is not uncommon for there to be a person, whether it be a woman or a man, who had never fired a gun and uses a firearm successfully in self-defense. The right to defend yourself with a firearm is your right whether you've taken any classes or not. It's your right whether you've gone to the range and practiced or not. And I think that's something that, especially in the firearms instructor space, of course we all want people to get training. We understand the importance of accuracy and things like that. But when we're talking about home defense, we're not talking about, you know, carrying a gun in public, taking out a bad guy that's maybe further away and you need to have, you know, knowledge of how good you are at shooting. We're talking about being in your home, defending your life from an intruder. It is not that hard. We do see it go wrong, right? We see people make mistakes, accidentally shoot the wrong person, things like that. But it is not that complicated to point a gun in the right direction and press the trigger. That is not a hard thing. So yeah, do we want people to get training? Of course. But also, you deserve the right to have a loaded gun in your home, whether you've ever taken a class or not.
Yeah, I mean, how vulnerable was this poor lady against a criminal, you know, with a screwdriver?
Right.
I mean, the reality is unless by screwdriver they meant orange juice and vodka.
In which case, a drunk dude in the house isn't good either.
That's not good either. But I mean,
And it said he did come into her bedroom. That's where this
terrifying.
happened. Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. So, all right. Anything else? Any other details we're going to know about this?
No, just to reinforce what Dakota was saying, instead of putting the fight to regulating and limiting and essentially hindering law-abiding people from having access to self-defense weapons, let's put energy into the encouragement for training. The encouragement, not the legislation.
Amen.
That's
Amen. Empowerment.
That's it.
Okay, great. Well, there you go.